right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Descano. I'm one of the current externs at UMC. Just doing a couple guest lectures for Dr. Bishop's class. So this is chapter 9 from your textbook, and it is about speech sounds. So just a little overview of what we're going to cover in this lecture. There's just some major ideas from phonetics that are kind of just sprinkled in throughout the lecture. You don't really have to have a full understanding of phonetics, but it is helpful to just know these symbols that are sometimes associated with the different sounds. They don't always just write the letter. A lot of the times they use these symbols from the phonetic alphabet to name the sounds. So the main objective of this lecture is for us to understand why different phonemes, which is another name for speech sounds, so why different speech sounds sound differently. And an important thing to remember throughout this lecture is that our vocal tract, when we say vocal tract, we're referring to our throat, our mouth, and also our nose. So what makes consonants, vowels, and diphthongs different? So vowels, it's what makes them different is the way that they're produced. Vowels are produced with a pretty open vocal tract. The air is just flowing through it. There's no major points of constriction. Consonants, on the other hand, are produced with a point of constriction somewhere along that vocal tract. Usually it is with our tongue. We create a point of constriction, and that is what shapes the airflow into a consonant. And diphthongs are a funny name for when we combine two vowels together. So when we transition in a word quickly from one vowel to the next, it kind of makes its own thing, and we call that a diphthong. And some examples of that are the vowel sounds in the word join, that OI, it's like oi, that sound is one vowel transitioning into the next. And another example is in the word caught. That aw sound in the middle is kind of two different vowels combined together to make that one sound in the middle of that word. So consonants. There are three main characteristics that we use when we are describing consonants. You could take any consonant and tell someone the place, the manner, and the voicing of that consonant. And you can see all of the consonants down here. They are plotted out with their phonetic symbols from the phonetic alphabet. But those different things, place is where in your mouth you place your tongue to constrict the oral cavity. We'll go into all the different places where we put our tongue to make the different consonants later on. And then there's also manner, which is the way in which the sound is produced. And we'll also talk about all of those different ways in which we produce sounds further on in the lecture. And then voicing, which is a pretty simple one, is whether or not you are vibrating your vocal cords during the sound or not. So the first one is place. So you can see here all of the different place characteristics that we use to define consonants. So the first one is lingua dental, which just means our tongue touches our teeth. So if you break that word down a little bit, lingua is tongue and dental is teeth. So that one kind of makes sense. Lingua dental sounds, we produce them by touching our tongue to our teeth. Those two sounds there are examples. Those are the TH sounds and V. You put your tongue to your teeth when you make those sounds. So those are lingua dental. The next type of sound is bilabial. So that means we put both of our lips together. So you can break that word down a little bit too. Bi means two, and labial means lips. So you use both of your lips, you contact them together to shape that airflow when you make these types of sounds. And some examples of those are P, B, M, and W. If you make all those different sounds, you can feel how your lips come together to produce them. And the next one is labiodental. So that is your tongue, not your tongue, your lips touching your teeth. So labio is lip again, just like in bilabial, and dental is teeth. So your lip touches your teeth, like in the sounds F and V here. It is helpful when you're learning these different speech sounds and the way they're produced to actually produce them, because you can feel it in your mouth. You can feel that when you say it, and that your tongue, why do I keep saying tongue? Your lips touch your teeth when you make those sounds. So those are labiodental sounds. The next one is a little bit less intuitive with its name, but similar. There is a ridge in your mouth. You can feel it with your tongue right behind your teeth, and that is called your alveolar ridge. So these sounds, alveolar sounds, are made when you touch your tongue right behind your teeth, right on that alveolar ridge. So the sounds t and d, you can feel how your tongue touches that ridge right behind your teeth. Those are alveolar because you touch your tongue to that alveolar ridge when you make them. The next type of placement we have is palatal. These are made with your tongue kind of flattened out a little bit and touching more of the roof of your mouth. Um, this one's a little bit weirder. Your tongue kind of makes a bowl when you say these sounds. These ones are easier to understand by just making the sounds. Like the sound you can kind of feel how your tongue is like kind of hot dog bunned up there up against the roof of your mouth, which we call the palate. So that's why these sounds are called palatal sounds, because your tongue is contacting that palate up there, the roof of your mouth, when you make them. Next are glottal sounds. Your glottis is that back of your throat area, and these sounds are made kind of more in the back of your throat. The only glottal sound that we have is the sound H. You can feel when you say that sound. Sorry, my cat will not shut up. When you make that sound, that the breath stream is kind of constricted further back in your throat at your glottis. So that is a glottal sound. And the last one is velar. So there's palatal, that's when your tongue touches that hard palate part. And then your velum is your soft palate right behind that, a little bit further back in your mouth. So velar sounds are produced when we take the back of our tongue and kind of touch it to the back of that soft palate. Like if you make the sound, you can kind of feel how the back of your tongue is touching your soft palate back there. And g are made by touching your tongue to that velum, that soft palate. So those are velar sounds. So these are all the different places that we put our tongue that characterize our different consonants. And then, as I said before, manner, the way in which we alter that breath stream in our mouth, also is a characteristic that we can use to characterize consonants. So there are stop sounds, or plosives, they're also called. I think the word plosive is a little bit more descriptive because in these sounds, the breath stream, the air stream stops and then kind of explodes out of your mouth. So like in the sounds t and p, you can kind of feel how the air stops and then explodes out of your mouth. Those are called plosive sounds. That's the way in which you alter that breath stream. The next one is a fricative, and these are named this way because the air kind of makes that friction in your mouth when you say them. Like it says here, it's created with a hiss of the air turbulence. So the way the sound is shaped is by making really a constriction in your mouth that causes friction in the air. So like the sound, you can feel how it's kind of turbulent in your mouth when you make that sound. Those are fricative consonants. The next class are called sonorants. They're kind of more vowel-like. They're made with less points of constriction in your mouth. They're steady, even sounds, not a lot of friction, not a lot of points of constriction in your mouth when you make those sounds. And those are further broken down into two categories called nasals and glides, which we'll talk about later. But sonorants are the more kind of sing-songy consonants that are kind of held out a little bit more like vowels. And then the last one is called an affricate. And this one is sort of a combination of a stop and a fricative. So this first example here is the sound CH, that ch sound. You can kind of feel how you make that stop, that t, and then that sh, which is a fricative sound. So you go ch, ch. If you kind of break down that ch sound, it's really the combination of t and sh. put together to make an affricate. And then lastly is voicing. So you can tell whether or not a consonant is voiced really easily by just putting your hand on your throat and making the different sounds. And if you feel that vibration of your vocal cords, you know that that's a voiced consonant. And if you don't feel that vibration of your vocal cords, you know that that is a voiceless consonant. And the sound is produced just by that airflow in your mouth, and there isn't any voicing behind it. So like the sounds b, d, g, I can feel my vocal cords vibrating when I say those. But when you say ch, you don't have that vibration of your vocal cords because those are voiceless sounds. So now vowels. So just like there are those different characteristics, place, manner, and voicing that we use to describe consonants, there are different characteristics that we use to describe vowels. So those characteristics are your tongue height, and you can see in this little graph over here that all of the vowels are plotted based on whether they're front, back, high, mid, or low. And so over here where it says high, mid, low is supposed to represent like the back of your throat. And then this pointy part up here with the I where it says front is supposed to represent the tip of your tongue. So that's how you sort of orient yourself to this graph, which will be really helpful in feeling where all of those different vowel sounds fall in your mouth. So there's tongue height, whether the base of your tongue is high, mid, or low in your mouth. There's tongue placement, whether it's very fronted, if the tip of your tongue is forward, if the back of your tongue is kind of pushed back into your throat, just like those velar and glottal sounds of consonants. And then there's also central vowels, when your tongue kind of falls somewhere in the middle. Only two of them, but. And then we also use the roundness of our lips to differentiate different vowels. They make different sounds if your lips are producing a different shape. And then whether or not your tongue is tense or relaxed when you make those vowels. So the front vowels, as they're named, the tip of your tongue is more toward the front of your mouth when you make those sounds. So if you go down this front of this graph here, there's this first vowel, E. When you say that, you can feel that your tongue is kind of touching your front teeth. And then also the vowel A. So I have a description of it here, the phonetic symbol, and then an example of that vowel in a word over here. And it kind of goes down this this vowel graph right here, so you can follow along with that. So when you go from E to A, nothing really changes with where the tip of your tongue is. And next, going down a little bit, is the vowel I. You can still feel that as you make that vowel I, the tip of your tongue is forward, touching your teeth. And then there is the vowel E, which is down here in this low front box, like in the word bet. When you make that sound, the tip of your tongue is still forward, but the back of your tongue, the body of your tongue, is pulled down a little bit further. And then lastly, the vowel A is our last front vowel, and that vowel is produced even a little bit lower than the vowel E. So when you go from E to A, you can sort of feel how your tongue pulls down a little bit, but the tip of it stays forward because it is still a front vowel. Next are these two kind of weird central vowels that kind of just fall in the middle of everything. So they call them central vowels. There is the vowel as in the word about. There's two vowels in that word, so it's kind of confusing, but is the unstressed vowel in that word, and ow is a diphthong, but it is the stressed vowel in that word. So when you say about, your tongue is kind of in the middle of your mouth when you say that vowel. And then there's also the same vowel but stressed, which is interesting. You just change how high up in your mouth your tongue is when you're stressing that vowel versus when it is an unstressed vowel. So when you say about and but, it's very subtle to tell the difference there in connected speech like that. but that is the central vowels. You can kind of feel when you say about your tongue, when you say that your tongue isn't really touching the tip of your teeth like it was in those front vowels. And then there are back vowels. So those are made by pulling that body of your tongue back a little bit further, and the tip of your tongue doesn't typically touch your teeth. So the vowel oo, going down this column here of the back vowels, the vowel oo, you can feel that your tongue is tense, it is back, and your lips are rounded. So it has all of those different attributes that we talked about. Oo is a high back vowel. You can feel that your tongue is not touching the tip of your teeth, that it's pulled up and back when you make that sound. And then there is the vowel as in book. The difference between oo and you can feel that all you really do is release that tension of your tongue. You're not really moving it much. It's still a high back vowel, but all you're really doing is changing the tension in your tongue. So ooh, You can feel the difference there. Your tongue stays in the same place. You're just changing the tension of it, and your lips are rounded for both of those vowels. Then we move down to the mid-back vowel of O, as in the word boat. So when you make that sound, your lips are also rounded, but your tongue is kind of more in the middle of your mouth. It isn't pulled up quite as high. If you go from ooh to O, you can kind of feel how your tongue shifts down a little bit, but the body of your tongue is still pulled to the back. If you try to say oh with your tongue pushed forward, it just kind of doesn't feel right. You wouldn't say it that way. You wouldn't move your tongue that way in connected speech. And then the last vowel is ah. That is a low back vowel, as in the word hot. You can feel your tongue pull kind of very far back and down when you make that sound, ah. Alrighty, so now there's just a couple review questions to pull it all together and make sure you take home the main points. I know Dr. Bishop said these questions are going to be mainly what he bases his tests around, so I would just make sure you know the main topics that are covered in these review questions and just be able to answer these and describe them. They're also the questions that are right in the back of the textbook if you want to look back at them, and all the answers are also there as well. But we can go through them now. So first one is about the place of articulation of each of these consonants. So they give you the options here. B. Also, again, it helps to just make the sound and you can kind of get the answer that way. You can tell where your tongue is in your mouth and what your lips are doing when you make that sound. So B, is it alveolar, palatal, glottal, velar, linguodental, bilabial, or labiodental? You can tell when you make B, you're using both of your lips. So that is bilabial. Same way all around. If you make the d, you can feel that D sound, you're touching that alveolar ridge there. When you make the g sound, it's kind of your tongue is pulled back, touching your velum. So that is a velar sound. And then H, as we know, that one's kind of a dead giveaway. H is the only glottal sound. And that one's palatal. You can feel your tongue make that kind of boat type shape on the roof of your mouth and touch your hard palate. This is the TH sound. That one is linguodental because you have to put your tongue to your teeth when you make that sound, linguodental. And V is labiodental because you are touching your teeth to your lips. So just be able to, if there's a consonant, be able to name the place, manner, and voicing of that consonant. So moving on to K, is it voiced or unvoiced? Remember, the easy way to tell this is just touch your vocal cords and make the sound. When I make that sound, my vocal cords are not vibrating, so I know that that is an unvoiced sound. And now manner. How is the sound produced? You should be able to look at a consonant and figure out whether it's a fricative, a plosive, an affricate. This one is D. Is it a fricative? Is there friction in your mouth? Or is it a stop plosive? Is it a stop with a burst of air? If you make that sound, d, 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 it's a stop consonant. And the sound M, is it nasal or non-nasal? This one, I guess we didn't really talk much about how to tell nasal versus non-nasal, but similarly to voicing, you can tell if it's a nasal sound if you pinch your nose and make the sound and you can't make it anymore. Like if I say and then pinch your nose, you can tell the air is coming out of your nasal cavity because when you pinch your nose and try to make that sound, you can't make the sound anymore. So you can tell that M is one of our nasal sounds because when you say and try to pinch your nose while making that sound, no air is coming out. So in the nasal sounds, we kind of close off that soft palate and we avert the breath stream through our nose. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the next chapter, but that's how you tell the difference between a nasal and a non-nasal sound. Similarly to voicing, there's a pretty easy way you can make the sound and see where the air is coming from. So vowels sound differently depending whether the tongue is held in place tensely or lax, and what are all the other characteristics we use to characterize vowels and tell which vowel is what. So that is, like we talked about, the height of our tongue in our mouth, whether it is forward, back, or toward the middle. So it's height, front or back, and then if it's tense or lax. Those are all the different ways that we can describe how we produce vowel sounds. And this is your textbook. And this is just another, I know I put a couple graphs in there of all of the speech sounds and their phonetic alphabet kind of translations, because I know those are used sprinkled in throughout the presentation. Sometimes it's hard to tell what is that symbol, like what sound is that. So you can use those charts I put throughout the PowerPoint. And then this is also a good website that kind of breaks it down, gives you the phonetic symbol, an example of a word, and what the speech sound is. And that is my email address. If you have any questions, if you need any clarification on anything I talked about in this lecture, please reach out to me or to Dr. Bishop, of course. And if you have any questions about other classes as well, I'm also open to that. Or just any questions about audiology in general or what clinic is like at UMC. I am open to anything. So reach out if you need anything. And I will see you in the next lecture for chapter 10.